Have you ever stopped to think about how a political decision made 2 centuries ago might be connected to the ground right under our feet? Or how a single engine could completely change how we organize our society? Well, today we're going to untangle some of those massive forces that have shaped our world, from big ideas to the planet itself. Let's jump in. It's a huge question, right? And honestly, the connections aren't always super obvious, but they are there. There's this invisible line that runs from political philosophies born ages ago, straight to the environmental challenges and social issues we're dealing with right now. And today, we're going to follow that line. So to make sense of this whole tangled web, we're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at the revolutionary ideas that literally redrew the map. Then, we'll get into the machines that fired up a new kind of economy. After that, we'll dig into our planet's resources. And finally, we'll see how all of this crashed together to reshape society. All right, first up, ideas. Let's dive into the incredible concepts that totally upended the political world, kicking off right after a huge war in Europe. So, let's set the scene. The year is 1815. Napoleon has finally been defeated. So the major powers of Europe, we're talking Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, all get together. Their mission? To basically hit the reset button, redraw the continent's borders, and put the old monarchies back in charge. This kicked off a whole new era of conservative rule. But here's the really interesting part. This new wave of conservatism wasn't about rejecting all things modern. Not at all. In fact, these rulers had a pretty sharp insight. They realized they could actually use modern stuff, like a professional army, an efficient bureaucracy, a strong economy, to make those old-school monarchies more powerful than they'd ever been. But while governments were busy trying to reinforce the old ways, there was this amazing piece of technology working in the opposite direction. The printing press was churning out cheap books, pamphlets, you name it. And with them, radical new ideas were spreading like wildfire. And this quote just nails the impact. For the first time, regular people could read the works of thinkers like Voltaire and Rousseau, who were asking some really dangerous questions about the power of kings and the church. It created this whole new public mindset, one that was skeptical, analytical, and logical. And that, right there, laid the groundwork for the revolutions to come. Now, let's switch gears a bit. We're moving from the world of abstract ideas to something you can really see and feel: the rise of industry and the creation of a brand new economy. Let's see how this new economy played out on the ground. Take India, for example. The old way of doing things involved local merchants who lived in the weaving villages. They knew the weavers, they had relationships, they'd help out in a pinch. But then the British East India Company came in with their own agents, called Gumastas. These guys were outsiders. They had zero connection to the community, and their only goal was to get the goods, which often led to major conflicts and totally tore apart the social fabric of these villages. And of course, you absolutely cannot talk about the Industrial Revolution without talking about the steam engine. It was the heart of the whole thing. It started with an early version by Newcomen, but the real breakthrough came when James Watt dramatically improved the design. His version, patented in 1781, became the powerhouse that drove everything: factories, trains, you name it. And the impact of all this manufacturing was just massive. It was a real game changer. Think about it. Factories create jobs, which helps reduce poverty. At the same time, all this industry helps modernize farming. And by selling all these new goods overseas, nations brought in tons of wealth, which just fueled more growth. It was a powerful cycle. Okay, but all this incredible growth in industry and farming, it had to be fueled by something, right? So for our third section, we're going to get our hands dirty. Literally, we're looking at the land itself and what happens when we push it to its limits. You know, everything really does start with the soil. Just look at this map of India. It's a perfect example of how diverse the ground beneath our feet can be. The kind of soil you have dictates what you can grow and ultimately how successful your agriculture can be. You can clearly see those huge, fertile plains up north and then the very different black soils down in the Central Plateau. Let's just zoom in on those two for a second. The alluvial soil, that's the super fertile stuff left behind by the Himalayan rivers. It's perfect for growing staples like wheat and rice. Then you have black soil, which is made from weathered rock. Its claim to fame is that it's fantastic at holding moisture, which makes it absolutely ideal for crops like cotton. But here's the catch. All that progress came with a really steep price. As you can see here, the very things driving the economy, mining, industry, even farming, were causing massive damage to the land. We were literally chewing up the foundation that our prosperity was built on. Luckily, people started to realize this just wasn't sustainable. and that gave rise to the whole idea of land conservation. The solutions, as you can see, were a direct answer to the problems: planting trees to fight deforestation, managing livestock to prevent overgrazing, and crucially, dealing with industrial waste before it pollutes everything.
All right, for our final section, let's pull all these threads together. We've talked about ideas, the economy, and the environment, but how did all of these massive shifts actually affect people, power dynamics, and the very structure of society? So let's start with a big one, a social structure that's been around for a very long time: patriarchy. It's a system that, simply put, values men more than women, and as a result, gives men more power in pretty much every part of life, from the home to the government. And this wasn't just some abstract theory, it had very real, tangible effects. As you can see here, this system led to women having lower literacy rates, fewer opportunities for higher education, and way fewer spots in high-paying jobs. On top of that, they were often paid less for doing the exact same work as men and had almost no voice in government. Now, as societies got more complex and diverse, they needed a new way to manage all the different groups of people living together. And that's where the idea of the secular state came from. The core principle is pretty simple. The government doesn't play favorites with religion. Instead, it aims to treat every religion and every citizen equally. And this is where a political idea can become a truly powerful tool for change. In India, for instance, the framework of democracy gave people, especially those from discriminated castes, the language and the moral high ground to demand equal rights. It empowered them to challenge centuries of inequality and fight for the opportunities they'd been denied. So, after weaving through all these different forces, we land here with this huge question: which of these things is the real engine of our world today? Is it our ideas, the economy, the planet's resources, or the way our societies are structured? The truth, of course, is that they're all tangled together. You can't pull one thread without moving all the others. They're constantly interacting, constantly shaping our reality. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Which force do you think has the upper hand right now?